Today we're going to open with geography vocab. Vocab is the first topic that we are going to cover for the geography unit. We have 8 words that we're going to cover today. These are not all the vocab words, but this is a bulk of them. So let's start today with the word plane. This word is different than your normal plane that you've always heard of. This plane is P-L-A-I-N. The plane that you usually heard of, the airplane, is spelled P-L-A-N-E. Do not get the two confused. They are two completely different things. This plane is flat lands that have small changes in elevation. It's a lot of grassland with hills that run in between the flat land. Most of these plains are located in the Midwest United States, in Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, North Dakota, South Dakota, and areas in the middle part of the United States. In this area, it is most famous for its tornadoes and the Dust Bowl. Now, what is the Dust Bowl? The Dust Bowl happened right around the time of the Great Depression, and basically what happened is there was a lot of drought during that time, and the agricultural and the farming operations basically went into a sharp decline, and people weren't able to grow their crops or as successfully. Also, because of the drought, they began to grow a lot of dust, and because of that dust, people began to inhale it and couldn't control it inside their houses. Because of that, people began to get sick, people began to suffer, people began to lose money because their crops declined, and it was a bad situation for the Midwest part of the United States in plain territory. Let's move on to a cliff. A cliff is a steep, jagged face of rock. Now, the most famous cliff in the United States is known as the Half Dome in Yosemite National Park in Sierra Nevada, California mountain range. This is a cliff with jagged edges on the side, and most cliffs usually border some type of water. Like I said, the most famous is the Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. Most cliffs are in the Caribbean islands or on the eastern coast of Europe. There aren't as many cliffs in the United States as other parts of the world. Let's move on to oasis. Oasis is a small area of water surrounded by desert. Most oases today are located in Africa, Middle East, the more desert-prone climates. What an oasis basically was used for, or is used for, is when traders and groups of people, basically when they were in desert for weeks at a time, looked for these oases for basically areas where they could water their animals and themselves. Place for relaxation and a hydration or water break. That is what an oasis is for. The next few are going to be words that you're going to be more familiar with. Let's start with a peninsula. A peninsula is a piece of land with 3 sides of water around it. One side, 2 sides, and the third side. You can have the third side up here as well. That is fine. The most famous 2 are Florida here in the United States on the southern tip, south of us, and you also have Africa. It is the southern tip of Africa that is the peninsula. Those are the 2 most famous peninsulas that most people are familiar with in the world. The next one, don't get it too confused. An island is a piece of land surrounded by all sides of water, not 3 sides. A peninsula is one that's surrounded by all sides but one side, usually 3 sides. The 2 most famous types of islands is Hawaii, one of the 50 states off the coast of California. That is more of a chain of islands. It's several series of islands put together into one island. You also have Ocracoke Island. Ocracoke Island is off the coast of North Carolina. The only way to get there is approximately an hour-and-a-half trip by ferry. That is really one of the only ways you can get to Ocracoke Island. and that is, in my opinion, the most famous island here in North Carolina. The next few are also going to be ones that you're going to be really familiar with. You have a canyon. A canyon is a deep valley with steep sides. Most of the time it looks like a large U, bigger size. You have the steep sides on both sides. Then on the bottom you have a valley that kind of evens out. It's really stretched out farther than the picture. The most famous is in southwestern part of the United States. We know it today as the Grand Canyon. The stories have always been that you can stand at the top of the Grand Canyon and see miles around, all the way 360 degrees. You can see in miles any direction. The next one, we also have them in North Carolina, are mountains. Mountains are tall, high, natural places on Earth. The two most famous is Grandfather Mountain, right here in North Carolina, and Mount Everest. Now, Mount Everest is part of a unit that we're going to talk about. So we're going to leave Mount Everest here. Just remember that Grandfather Mountain is in North Carolina. Glacier. Glacier is a slow-moving river of ice. It's basically where a lot of ice cubes form together over 100,000 years, and they basically form into one big old sheet of ice. The most famous story is the story of the Titanic. Early April 1912, the Titanic set sail from Europe. And it was believed to be the ship to be unsinkable. It is on its way to the United States. It travels the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, and in the eagle's nest one night, the person standing up there sees all these glaciers sitting around. He worries about the Titanic hitting him. He yells, "Glacier, glacier," all around. The captain moves the ship, tries to move it as quickly as possible. He is unsuccessful. He clips it, and we know the rest of the story. A few hours later, the ship goes down. There are still glaciers around today, around the North Pole region, around the northern part of Canada, northern part of Europe, in the North Atlantic region of the world. There are a lot of glaciers that still exist. So don't think just because the Titanic hit it that all the glaciers are gone. Glaciers do still exist today. This ends the vocabulary for the geography unit.